I think she would absolutely reject it. Did they know that we never saw them? Did they think we just were ignoring them? I am Kathleen Matar from Buffalo, New York. I am Lola's granddaughter.
Thank you for doing like a little follow-up to this. I saw, I would say probably thousands. I couldn't go through them all. Thousands of comments on some of these videos. And a lot of them pointed out, they could tell right away that that's in our family tree, like immediately. And a lot of questions about how did you not know that? It's so obvious to us. Does it change anything for you? Like,
really intrigued is how I feel about that. That's such interesting information, because I guess I am living in my own world in my own skin, and I am very, very fair. And so people just looked at me as, just Irish, fair, because of my coloring. If we're going to really just speak honestly about it, the first thing people recognize about a person is coloring, hair, skin, all those things. Then, like they said, they could see features in our family, distinctive things like that. From what I could see in the mirror, and also what people saw and interacted with me about, it was just always about being Irish.
yeah.
And fair. We're all injecting our experiences and our perceptions.
Did anything kind of change your understanding of your Gram of Lola?
Actually, this has been extremely enlightening and valuable. We never had any interaction, and Lola never told us anything. So it's all actually pretty new information. My mother's sister, Lola's daughter, Maggie, had done some research and shared some things. It was, papers, things like that. We can see the people and we can hear their own voice. That's just been so much deeper to really get an understanding.
One of the guys who talked on there, so his name is Chris Smith. So he's a cousin of ours on the Perot side, and he was sitting with our other cousin, Audrey. They just came across this big trunk, old photos that Lola's cousin had in the house. Like, this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So she was sending them pictures of our family, and they're just sitting in this trunk in Louisiana in this abandoned house. And I don't know, it's just weird to think about that, like, because I'm like, those are people they knew.
Amazing to me, because we didn't get the benefit of the flip side of that. We didn't see pictures of them, or I didn't anyway. I should only speak for myself. I never saw any pictures from Louisiana, and, siblings being discussed, let alone, further down their children or grandchildren and things like that. I don't know why that was, but it makes me feel a little sad that, they were kind of seeing us. And did they know that we never saw them? Did they think we just were ignoring them? That's kind of where my brain goes to. Did they wonder why, the next generation had never reached out? But I don't know. I didn't know any history.
I thought going to Louisiana would be very static, and we go down and we look at papers and we tour places, and I didn't think that there were going to be people down there who, I don't know. I didn't even know if there were people down there still. I just like,
Right.
what's going to be down there? Part of the family I got to interview was your mom's actual cousin, and his name was Joe Perot. And they said Perot because their last name got changed, and it's the same thing as Graham's, where they're spelling it the French way. And I don't know, it made me want to call Grammy a bunch of times, I think, during this, where I don't know. I thought, what would Grammy say about this now? Well, what do you think?
I think she followed very closely in her mother's footsteps, would not actually discuss it. I really think that if a person came to her and said, I'm your first cousin Joe, I think she would be very warm and welcoming to an individual.
Yeah.
But in terms of really wanting to do what you're doing, digging down, understanding, the lines of the heritage and how that comes down, I think she would absolutely reject it.
Yeah.
I think she would just say, we're good. And did that come from Lola? Danny certainly doesn't have that point of view at all. I don't have an explanation for it as to, but I feel pretty strongly that my mother would just not say anything. I think she would listen and just and not participate.
And telling someone, I found what you didn't want me to find to see how, yeah, it's not going to be, I think that it would be the happy experience that I think I'm looking to have of, you know, look, we brought it full circle. Yeah.
I think the reticence on the part that we're assuming for Marion and Lola, that's something that is so deeply ingrained. I don't think you could get them to move off of that. Lola, for different reasons, she was definitely trying to fit in and to pass. I think ultimately it was more for her children than for herself. She was very forward looking, and the future was where she could be, you know, whatever she wanted.
I did see people commenting, and not that it matters what people say, but it made me think that if things had been handled a little differently, would our family have the opportunities that they had, or be in the position that they were, had Lola not kind of said, we're course correcting here and do it this way? And I don't think that they would.
It's frightening, and I can't imagine doing it myself. Then there's that sense of regret. I think she probably felt it too, of, you know, I've had to distance myself physically, right? Going all the way to New York State. If for my kids and for the future, I'll do it.
When I was talking to Joe, so it's your mom's cousin and his siblings. So these are Lola's nieces and nephews. Talking there in Louisiana, I'd asked, like, did you ever hear about your Aunt Lola from your dad? And they said, just she moved away. It's just, I don't know. It's just like really, really bittersweet, I think, all of it. And you see just how families you can lose so much. One of the most shocking things, I think, was talking to Joy, and when she shared about Uncle Danny's birth certificate, thinking even in New York, so she's put all this distance, Lola's put all this distance between who she was and who she is now, and still don't get white on Uncle Danny's birth certificate. Did you know that story?
I think I did hear it. I can't say it didn't really stick with me. Now in context, it's a lot more. It means a lot more. And for exactly for the reason that you stated, that even in New York, you're still living in a time where it had a social impact rather than just a data point. That was still in New York State too. Obviously, it didn't mean as much as it did in Louisiana.
People seemed almost hurt, like we were rejecting it. I think that was the sense. I was like, well, why are you rejecting this part of you? Do you feel like this changes any way that you identify going forward?
I have DNA, but do I have the life experience? And maybe this is a cultural thing. I think in this day and age, you have to be very, very careful about appropriating someone else's culture.
Right.
So you have to be mindful and respectful. For me, it isn't something that I would turn away from, but I think leaning into it might seem problematic for others rather than for me. They might say, what's your motivation? I don't know. I just found this out. So I think those are actually my first thoughts, that if I tried to lean into this, or some people will be like, look at you, you're so white, you're almost transparent, and you want to claim something else that you have no history in. And for my background, you probably know, for the past 15 years, I've worked in a homeless shelter on the east side of Buffalo. The area is primarily people of color. My experience is not their experience, economically, socially, all those things. You have to be very mindful. It's a matter of respect, I think. So close friends, my associates, are people of color. I can't imagine that they would ever look at me and say, you're one of us.
Also surprised me, from, again, trying to read through people's responses to the videos, was that passing was a very common occurrence from Louisiana. Same time period. So like Lola left during the height of Jim Crow, 1930s. So they had their first kid and they left. People said that there were aunts, uncles, things like that in their family where they knew somebody was lighter and they went up north and they really never saw that side of the family again.
it resonates deeply with me, this concept of almost genetic roulette. You were born with lighter skin or darker skin, and that meant a lot in terms of what your opportunities would be going forward, and how it divided families, separated them, right, as people left. But I understand it on a practical level, as sad as it is. Again, going back to Lola's decision, it's you know, it's hard.
Turn to make your choices for your life. And, yeah,
Yeah, it
I
makes
think,
me think about how I'll be judged,
right.
by someone, you know, 2 generations separated from me. There's so many things that go into every decision that you make as an individual, but then especially as a parent, the stakes are so much higher when you're not just thinking for yourself. I know that my children at this point don't understand some of the things that we've said, done, embraced or rejected. They grew up in the house with me. Really interesting to have this concept that, 2 generations down, someone could be trying to put these pieces of a puzzle together. So I give you a lot of credit for doing that. It's a lot of work, and it's been very interesting to go on this ride.
I guess I'm hoping just at the end of the day, just a little bit more of a bridge between things. And if people are interested in it, it's there for them. And some people aren't, and that's okay. And if my kids grow up and one of them cares about this, in 20 years, there'll be a path for them to take.